It's your boy Gsluke here for our round 4 prize picks targets for this week's Mexico Open. We're coming in off of round 3 where, again, we hit for 2x. We had a 4 for 5 card, same as what we had there for Friday, and really not a surprise. I guess the only surprise was the fact we didn't hit for 5 of 5. We had Sebastian Munoz, our one lone dud out of the card, who ended up making 3 birdies at his 4 birdies or better mark. That included a 3-putt when he hit a par 4 in one shot, so that was extremely tilting. He also ended up 3-putting 2 of the other par 5s, so just completely unacceptable stuff from a Sebastian Munoz, and ended up costing us dearly, but can never complain anytime we're coming home with more money than we came into it. And of course, we're getting close. Like I said before, we were getting close to that 5 out of 5, and with 2 4 out of 5s in a row, I don't know if we could be much closer. So gonna hop into the picks here, of course, for round 4. In this video specifically, we're gonna be covering my top 4 props here for Sunday. So not my top 5. We'll talk about the reasoning for that here in a second. And we also have a promo running. So if you're running any flex plays here for Sunday, you're going to have an even better payout. So just make sure you get those in before the promo ends. Alright guys, on the screen you can see the data golf profile for round 3, and you can see it played easier than we expected, right around a stroke under par. Now, I expected it to play close to 0.6, maybe 0.7 strokes under par, so it wasn't like we were drastically off or anything like that, but certainly it was a little bit more gettable than we expected. And for Sunday, I would expect that to continue, because from a weather perspective, we have absolutely beautiful conditions. I mean, little to no wind up until 12 to 1 p.m. And tomorrow, we will have players teeing off at 7:30 local time there. So you'll have some players that will be done by 11 or even just around midday. And of course, you're going to have players that are teeing off towards 12 or even 1 p.m. there. They're going to be exposed to the quote-unquote worst conditions for most of the day. Now, I put that in quotes there because the worst conditions are just 8 miles an hour of sustained winds, which is nothing for these players. They're used to playing in 10 to 15 miles an hour and kind of getting away with it. In this, single-digit range or even in the 10 to 15 mile an hour range isn't going to cause these guys problems. So in terms of a scoring average, I'm going to have it very similar to what we had here on Saturday, maybe slightly more difficult, right? You're expecting Sunday pin locations, a few of them to be a little bit more tucked than what we saw for moving day. So in terms of a projection, I'm going to have the field average at right around 0.85 under par. Now for the prize picks board, and just going to start this off with a review of the promo. I know I mentioned it during the intro, but a little bit of an interesting scenario here. We have boosted payouts on all flex plays. A 4-leg flex is going to pay out 8x rather than the 5x it usually does, and a 5-leg flex play is going to pay 13x rather than 10x, and that accounts for all golf props. That means that no matter what multiplier we're being applied, you're going to get that extra payout, which means instead of having to take overs and unders like we always have to here, we can just take all overs. It's absolutely beautiful. We don't have to go out and take a fade. So this time, it's just going to be a 4-leg flex, which will pay out 8x for tomorrow. Just make sure you enter it before midnight Eastern time. And if we end up only hitting 3 out of the 4, which of course is possible, right? It's going to happen from time to time. We get paid 2x still. So it's much like a 4 out of 5 for a 5-legs parlay. So that's why we're going with this type of format. Just want to take advantage of the most ROI that we can. And let's go ahead and hop into the props, which you can see number 1 is going to be all greens in regulation, all 4 of these guys, and a lot of the elite tier options as well. So let's start at the top with Jon Rahm at 13.5 greens, and I have him going over here. He went over on the first 2 days. Today wasn't quite as solid with the greens in regulation, but was still solid with the ball striking. I mean, he's the world's best player. The average for greens in regulation today was right around 13 hit, and if he's well above average player in terms of his GRR percentage and shots gained approach, somebody I'm very comfortable taking the over on. I have him projected for closer to 14.6 greens in regulation, which seems absurdly high, right? There's only 15 greens in regulation out the golf course, but they're aircraft carrier sized out there. I mean, you're talking 20 to 30 yards wide a lot of the time, maybe even 30 to 40 yards deep. In terms of a average width or average square footage, you're looking at right around 7,500 square foot, which the PGA Tour average is just 5,500 square foot. I mean, Pebble Beach golf courses with tiny greens like the RBC Heritage in Hilton Head are closer to 2,800 square foot. And you still had players at those events, hitting 10 to 15 greens in regulation on a solid day. So for me, 13.5, I know it looks aggressive. Same thing with Tony Finau that we're going to talk about here in a second. But given the ball striking that we've seen, their long-term pedigree, still guys I'm willing to take the over on. Next up, we have Tony Finau. Very similar story. It's just been absolutely striping it this week, whether it's off the tee, into greens. Tony Finau has been putting himself in position, most notably on Thursday and Friday. We did have Tony Finau props where we had him for birdies in. He ended up hitting it for us on Friday, but on Thursday, couldn't buy a putt for his life. The guy was, putting himself in position, 5 to 10 feet on every single hole and missing. The beauty with greens in regulation is it doesn't matter how bad he putts, right? Of course, for Saturday, he ended up shooting 6 under par, had a really good day. I wouldn't expect that to continue tomorrow, right? The putters kind of come and go for him. It's touch and go, something that doesn't really stick around too often for Tony Finau. But of course, when we're just looking at a single stat, it doesn't really matter, right? He can miss every single putt for us. And as long as he's not getting too frustrated or mad with himself, I would expect him to go out there, have a really solid performance, and hit right around 14.3 greens in regulation like I have him projected for. And now for our last two picks. So first off, we have Aaron Wise at 13 greens. Another player who's one of the better iron players in this field. In fact, with shots gained approach, is top 5 in the field over the last 50 measured rounds. So just an iron specialist. We know that about Aaron Wise. He's long off the tee, very solid with the irons, hitting those approach shots. And at 13 greens, I have him projected for 14.1. So not quite as significant as somebody like a Jon Rahm or a Tony Finau, but we also have that push in our back pocket, right? If he doesn't end up hitting 14, we have that push at 13. And the beauty about this promo is even the 3-leg flexes are boosted. So if we end up having a 3-leg flex, I believe it ends up paying out 3.25x rather than the 2x that it usually does, or so on and so forth, right? Something along those lines. So in either scenario, right, if we end up having a push, still getting that boosted payout. So that's important here. A lot of times when you're getting boosted payouts with golf and you end up having a push, you don't get that boosted payout. So like, for example, if you have a 5-leg flex play, you end up having one of them push and you end up going 4 for 4 on that flex play. Even if you had 2 overs and 2 unders, you don't get the boosted payout. You just get paid the 5x or whatever the standard amount would be for Prize Picks. Now, in this promo, they've made it extremely clear, abundantly clear to us that the boosted payouts for the next leg down, like if you went 3 for 4 or 4 for 5 on a flex, are also going to be boosted. So that's why it's so important to take some of these guys that could potentially end up pushing, because we are still going to be getting that inherent value. So I like them there at 13, again, projected for just over 14 greens in regulation. Another player I'm taking the over on. And now lastly, the last green in regulation prop that I'm taking is going to be Sebastian Munoz at 12.5 greens. He's another player who, again, completely blew our card today, right? He ended up only making 3 birdies. A lot of people would be hesitant to go back to him, but he still hit greens today. He still put himself in position. I mean, hell, the guy was even hitting a par 4 in one shot. And in general, I'm willing to always go back to the guys that burn us. I mean, most of the time, you'll see them priced down. And quite frankly, that's why Sebastian Munoz is at 12.5 here and not 13 greens. He struggled today, especially on the first 9 holes that he played. And as a result, I'm always looking to take advantage. I mean, much like a Kevin Na yesterday, that we ended up taking the under for greens on because he had such a solid Thursday and Friday, comfortably hit the under for us, right? There's a lot of overreaction that happens with these golf props. And it's always something that I'm looking to take advantage of. Another similar story was with Patrick Reed, right? We took the under at 4.5 birdies. The guy only made 2 birdies on the day, which you would expect that because he hasn't been playing very well, right? The last 2 to 3 months, Patrick Reed has been absolutely dreadful. So another one of these scenarios where there has been a little bit of an overreaction, and it makes it a really solid spot for us to attack Munoz. I mean, even with Aaron Wise, right? He was at 13 greens in regulation, so his prop didn't move. But Jon Rahm went from 14 greens down to 13.5 just because he had a quote-unquote mediocre day where he still shot 3 under par, put himself in position a lot more than most. Those are the exact type of scenarios that I'm looking to take advantage of. Now, if you were looking to make this a 5-leg card, you're so inclined, you want to go after that 13x parlay, just add Pat Perez here. Have him at 12.5 greens in regulation. This is a separate card that I've already added here, and it's a very similar story, right? Didn't have the best day today, so he was priced down to 12.5. but over his last 50 measured rounds is a significant gainer to the field with his approach play. In fact, gaining over a quarter of a stroke per round. So if he's going to be above average, somebody I have projected for closer to 13.7 greens in regulation. Just to give you an idea, Sebastian Munoz I projected for 13.9. So that's why he's a little bit of a better play than somebody like a Pat Perez, but still comfortably well over the projection that we have him at. I just don't think you need to force it, right? The difference between an 8x payout and a 13x payout, just that 5x, I'm not sure if it's worth it, right? You know, if you're adding another prop, it's going to be at least, I mean, in theory, right, twice as hard to hit a 5-leg flex play than it is a 4-leg flex play. So it should go from like an 8x to a 16x, maybe an 18x in reality. So that's really why I'm not targeting the 5x. I just think it's not really boosted as enough as it really should be. But if you really wanted to do so, right, you really want to go after that 13x payout, that's how I'd go about doing so. All right, guys, that's all I've got for the prize picks video. If you guys haven't already liked the video, make sure you go ahead and do that. And before you hop on out of here, also make sure you go ahead and comment your favorite prop down below. I'd always like to hear from you guys, so make sure you go ahead and do that. And also going to have you guys covered for next week's golf tournament. So look forward to that. We're going to have plenty of content to come, whether it's for DFS, a course breakdown, or all of our prize picks videos to drop. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss any of that to come. But best of luck with all of your props here for round 4, guys. Hopefully we can take home some of this extra promo money because we're really getting close, right? Like I said, 2 4-for-5s in a row, just a matter of a time before we go and hit. So again, best of luck, like I said, and I'll see you guys next time.